Yeah, Daytona, these are the most high-profile figures so far that the president has decided to issue pardons for, that being Paul Manafort. Remember, Daytona, back in 2016, in the spring and the summer, he was the campaign chairman leading the effort to get President Trump elected in 2016. He had to resign that post due to reports that came out about his business dealings with the former Soviet Union, especially in the Ukraine, his dealings with Russian intelligence officers. And so he was serving a 7-year sentence, which now will be commuted, and he will be granted a full pardon. Also, though, Roger Stone is being granted a pardon as well. Remember, about 2 or 3 months ago, the president commuted his sentence, so he didn't have to serve his term. That would have been about 60 months, I believe, in prison for lying to federal authorities, lying to a congressional committee, and obstructing a House panel. And this is all stemming from the Mueller investigation, the Russia probe. Remember, Robert Mueller was appointed as special counsel back in 2017 to look at these allegations that Russia was involved in the 2016 election, and if the Trump campaign or any associates with it had ties to Russia. Remember the Russian collusion investigation. And so, you know, right now, Manafort and Stone didn't cooperate with prosecutors in the special counsel's investigation. Now they're getting their pardons today. But these are two very high-profile people that the president has decided to issue pardons for. 26 other people that he listed today. We have the list right here that the White House press secretary gave out earlier, a number of different people. One I did want to mention as well, Charlie Kushner. That's the father of Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law. Remember, back in the early 2000s, he was implicated in he was basically implicated in a scheme where he was illegally donating to Democratic candidates, and then was sentenced to about 16 months in prison for that. He only is now getting that pardon. Remember, though, one of the president's also staunchest allies back in 2016, when he was then a candidate, was Governor Chris Christie. And Chris Christie at the time was the U.S. attorney for the state of New Jersey and prosecuted Charlie Kushner and sent him to jail. So just to give kind of all that context there, there's so much, and we had those pardons from yesterday, and you know, now the president is down at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, and this news came out just as he was arriving there on the tarmac, Daytona.
And Andrew, interesting, I'm going to pull this up here just to compare what is going on with, looks like we have some other audio. Hold on, give me a minute. With other presidents in the past, take a look at this. Today's grants bring President Trump's clemency totals to 70 pardons and 22 commutations. This compares at the same point in presidencies to Obama, 22 pardons, George W. Bush, 29 pardons. So the numbers say it right there in comparison to Obama and Bush. And you were saying earlier, Andrew, this might not be it for President Trump as far as pardons go.
Yes, this was kind of a will he or won't he kind of a wait and see approach for today with Roger Stone and Paul Manafort. So obviously we know now that he did go through with that. A lot of other names have been floated around. Remember, there are 28 days left in this administration, so who really knows what could happen? Some of those names I've been seeing around, you know, Julian Assange, Edward Snowden. So that remains to be seen. We'll be on the lookout for that here on NewsNOW from Fox. Remember, the presidential pardon power is quite, you know, widespread. They have very, very, you know, granted leeway to essentially do this. There has to be people vying on behalf of the convicted, of the accused, and it comes to the president essentially saying, you know, here are the people vouching for these you know, convicted people, these people who may have pleaded guilty, who've served time, saying, hey, they should be pardoned. Their sentences should be commuted. So the president has to review all of that. The Department of Justice Pardon Review Board has to review that as well. And so now we're seeing these, you know, this raft of 26 pardons today and 3 commutations, you know, matched with those 20 yesterday as well. So outgoing presidents do this. I remember hearing, you know, reports from the Clinton administration back in the 90s when he was leaving power that he essentially was granting pardons on his last day in office, Daytona. So the president who is leaving office, this is customary, but the amount of people that get pardoned and the nature of the relationships to the president themselves, that's what is so unique here, and that's what we're looking here for as well.
Yeah, and a busy day for the president, all in all, today and yesterday with this COVID-19 relief bill. Yesterday, president saying, hey, I don't think this is good enough, and I think we should take another look at this. So let's take another look at what the latest is on this relief bill right now.
Before leaving the White House for his holiday vacation, President Trump surprised lawmakers, his staff, and all of Washington when he announced Tuesday in a White House-produced video he's not happy with the $900 billion stimulus bill negotiated by his own Treasury Secretary.
It's called the COVID relief bill, but it has almost nothing to do with COVID. I am asking Congress to amend this bill and increase the ridiculously low $600 to $2,000 or $4,000 for a couple.
The president's unhappiness could translate to a veto of a bill already passed by the House and Senate. Democrats appear thrilled with the president's demand to increase direct payments for some Americans. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi tweeting, quote, "At last, the president has agreed to $2,000. Democrats are ready to bring this to the floor this week by unanimous consent. Let's do it."
The motion to concur is agreed to.
The economic stimulus package is tied to a massive government funding bill, which includes money for foreign aid, something the president repeatedly lashed out against in his video message.
Congress found plenty of money for foreign countries, lobbyists, and special interests, while sending the bare minimum to the American people.
If the president vetoes, the country faces a potential government shutdown next week. This afternoon, the president did veto the bipartisan-backed National Defense Authorization Act, a bill outlining Pentagon funding and priorities. The veto was expected after the president had made it clear he was upset the bill did not include language to repeal liability protections for social media companies.
It's a tremendous moment for myself and my family.
Tonight, former Trump campaign aide George Papadopoulos is one of several people thanking the president for a holiday pardon. Papadopoulos and Alex Vanderswan were both convicted of lying to investigators in the Mueller probe. Also on the pardon list, two early supporters of the president, former Republican Congressman Chris Collins and Duncan Hunter.
I had no idea what was happening. So this came through.
Hunter was set to report to prison in January after pleading guilty to misusing campaign funds for personal expenses. Collins was convicted of insider trading charges and was already behind bars. 4 former Blackwater private security contractors were also pardoned. The 4 men were convicted in 2014 after a shooting in Baghdad's Nisour Square left 17 Iraqis dead. Speaker Pelosi said late Wednesday that the House is going to be meeting on Monday to override the president's veto. Senate Republicans are indicating that they will go along with the plan once it reaches their chamber. The president certainly facing an uphill battle here over the Defense Authorization Act. In West Palm Beach, Florida, Mark Meredith, Fox News.
Andrew, I'm just putting 2 and 2 together, too. I think the last series of pardons we saw were right before Thanksgiving. So it seems to be he wants to give these holiday gifts to all these people he's pardoning.
Yeah, that's right. And I just wanted to, also note that this was the Attorney General, Bill Barr's last day as Attorney General, December 23rd. So now we have the acting Attorney General in power at the Department of Justice. His name is Jeffrey Rosen. So I thought that was interesting. Maybe that, the Attorney General, Bill Barr, could have possibly disagreed with these pardons and didn't really want to stick around for this happening today. We are getting Republican comments about these latest pardons coming down this tonight. There has been a statement from Senator Ben Sasse, the Republican from Nebraska, and he said, and he put it quite simply, Daytona, quote, "This is rotten to the core." So even some Republican senators not agreeing with the president's moves today. I just wanted to touch on some other key aspects that Mark Meredith mentioned in his story today. He did mention that the House will be in session tomorrow, and they're awaiting word from Leader Hoyer as to whether Leader McCarthy will agree or reject the House Dems' unanimous consent request. And what they're trying to do is up those direct stimulus payments from $600 to $2,000 in kind of a standalone bill that can be essentially passed and voted on by unanimous consent, not with a roll call vote, just a voice vote. And I also wanted to say on the veto of the National Defense Authorization Act, the president indicated he was going to veto this. We knew it was coming. And so Speaker Pelosi has said that next Monday, the House will take up that veto override with bipartisan support. So I just want to give a little context. The president is leaving office after just one term, but this is the president's 9th veto overall in office. He's never had a veto overridden, and so that will change because presumably the House and the Senate are going to override that veto. Remember, that requires 2/3 of a vote of both bodies, Senate and the House, to override a veto. So Daytona, that's historic, right? We could see for the first time in the Trump presidency an overridden veto, which has not happened before in his time in office.
Yeah, and just to provide some context on this defense bill, this is a bill that affirms 3% pay raises for U.S. troops, and it authorizes more than $740 billion in military programs and construction. Trump has offered a series of rationales for vetoing this bill. He's called for lawmakers to include limits on social media companies he claimed are biased against him. He's called for stripping out language that allows for the renaming of military bases such as Fort Benning and Fort Hood that honor Confederate leaders. Without going into detail, though, he's claimed the biggest winner for the defense bill would be China. So we've been following this for a little while here, Andrew, and we saw this veto coming, but it actually came a little bit later than I thought it was going to come, to be honest.
Yeah, kind of coming at the last minute there before the holidays. Essentially, the president has this 10-day leeway, this 10-day period where he can kind of just not sign a bill and let it go to essentially a pocket veto. But today we didn't see that. He declaratively said he will veto this, and there was a statement made from the White House. So.
Yep, just one day ahead of Christmas Eve. Well, let's talk a little bit about New York. A familiar face is saying that he plans to run for mayor. Who is that, Andrew?
Yeah, that's right. So it seems as though the former Democratic presidential candidate, Andrew Yang, is not giving up on those political aspirations. He has filed paperwork to run for New York City mayor in 2021. So he's looking to take on the current Democratic mayor, Bill de Blasio, and fellow former presidential candidates, Bill de Blasio, like I said. So he's a 45-year-old businessman. Just days after a new poll showed him with a slight lead among Democrats running for mayor in the city. He gained popularity during the Democratic primaries with his call, remember, for universal basic income of $1,000 a month for every American over the age of 18. And you'll remember, Daytona, that he made it pretty far in the Democratic primaries. He never really made it to like one or second or third place standing in a lot of those contests, but he hung on for quite some time. The Yang Gang was a very, large and active group on social media that supported Andrew Yang and his policies. He's normally a tech entrepreneur when he's not into politics. And so remember, like I said before, the New York City mayor race is one to watch. I believe there's about 35 candidates vying for Mayor Bill de Blasio's position. The Democratic primary is next June. But many before that thought it would be a two-man fight between the city comptroller and the Brooklyn borough president. But now things do look a little different, Daytona, because Andrew Yang, he has much more of a national profile, is throwing his hat in the ring. And he lives in Midtown Manhattan, there near Hell's Kitchen in Midtown West. So this will be interesting. I covered a little bit of Andrew Yang's primary back when he was campaigning in the early months, back in Iowa, in South Carolina, in Nevada. So he definitely has more of a national profile than some of the other candidates running for New York City mayor. So it remains to be seen, how far he will go and, kind of what the poll numbers are looking like at the moment. But as far as we know now, he has officially filed to run.
Well, there you go. Some great news right there. we got some other news for you. I feel like we've been ending on sports stories for the past week, but this is a big one right here. James Harden has been fined $50,000 for violating the NBA's health and safety protocols. I'm going to read off this statement from the NBA. Houston Rockets guard James Harden has been fined $50,000 for violating the league's health and safety protocols, which, among other things, prohibit attending indoor social gatherings of 15 or more people or entering bars, lounges, clubs, or similar establishments. It was announced today by Byron Sproul, the president of league operations. Harden violated these rules when he attended a private indoor party on Monday, December 21st. Now, the league has sanctioned specific restaurants in every NBA city that players, coaches, and staff who are part of each team's travel party allowed to attend. The protocol prohibits those people from going to bars, lounges, or clubs and from participating in social gatherings of more than 15 people. There's also evolving stricter league mandates in certain markets such as San Francisco and Los Angeles, prohibiting teams from traveling beyond the hotel or the arena. But in pictures of Harden, they were circulating on social media. He wasn't wearing a mask at the club. The NBA deemed Harden unavailable due to this violation, obviously. Just a day after the 2020-2021 regular season tipped off, though, the NBA is now postponing its first game. Later this afternoon, the NBA announced that the matchup between the Houston Rockets and Oklahoma City Thunder, scheduled for 8 o'clock Eastern time, had been postponed because the Rockets just didn't have 8 players available. And this is a common storyline right now for not only basketball, but for other sports as well. You see a lot of players, football players and baseball players even getting this virus and having to shut it all down. So it's a hard gamble to play. We want the sports, but the coronavirus is still out there, man. So and $50K down for James Harden.
Yeah, and remember, Daytona, back in the summer, back last July, the NBA was really touted for, the restrictions they put in place. Remember, all the players had to essentially play in that bubble there at Walt Disney World to prevent infection and prevent the spread of it. And they were really lauded for kind of this innovative approach to how to handle professional sports during the really grips of the pandemic. But now at the start of the new season, you're seeing some players kind of slip up there.
Yeah, it's interesting because I just did a talk back yesterday with a Fox reporter in Orlando. The Orlando Magic is getting all ready, getting Amway Arena set up and ready to go with all of these new COVID-19 restrictions, making sure that fans are safe when they're in there, social distancing, masks, all of it. But the guys on the court are the ones who are getting the virus. So unfortunate situation for all the basketball fans out there.
Yeah, that's right. And, we're glad we could do this and bring you the top stories of the day here on NewsNOW from Fox. Daytona will be off for the next couple of days. She's going on Christmas vacation, but I'll be right here tomorrow for a Christmas Eve special that we're doing. We've partnered up with NORAD, and we're going to be tracking Santa's movements throughout tomorrow night on Christmas Eve. You're not going to want to miss it. From yours truly, your host here, myself. Tomorrow night, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to hear from a lot of people, and we're going to track Santa's movements across the world and when he gets to North America as he travels across the United States, delivering presents to many children. So you're not going to want to miss it. Daytona News Now does have a Twitter account, and we plugged it there. You can mention it for us.
Andrew, it's at NewsNOW Fox, but I just want to tell everyone, I heard that you were wearing a full Santa costume for your coverage tomorrow. Is that right? That's just rumors I'm hearing.
Daytona, that's incorrect. But we did interview the big man himself. Fox News, or NewsNow's own Regina Gonzalez sat down with him, kind of just describing, how he's gearing up for the big day, his major travel plans, all the stops he has to make. So we're going to play that out in the next couple of hours. But I will be a little more festive than usual. Hopefully I'll wear my bright red pants with a bright red tie. Got to get in the good cheer of the holiday spirit, right?
Yeah, you just don't add up to real Santa. Sorry.
Maybe I will. Maybe you never know. It's still a day away. I could throw you for a loop there.
You need a couple more cookies and a little more facial hair, but that's okay. We'll work on it in 2021. All right, that's going to do it for us on this daily rundown. Today's top headlines. You can join us next week for it, as I will be hanging out at home with my family for the holidays. Thanks for joining us here. And I'm going to send some of you off to a 2-minute commercial break, but when you come back, we got a lot more here on News Now from Fox.